It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river, and today is the day. The 10th annual Racing with the Stars kicks off today. They start selling races at 11, and you can start racing at noon. They're going to race 10 people to a race, about 8 laps a race. They figure they're going to get in about 100 races before the end of the night, and each one of those races is going to have a celebrity racer. Ricky Thornton Jr. was probably the one that I was most excited about on that list.
Yeah, I saw that. I did have a side note on that. I did see a post today on Facebook where they had a young man that was kind of like an honorary pace car driver last year. His name was Josh Lewis, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Passed away. It's kind of a sad deal. So
yeah, he lost his battle. He'd had a tough life, born in 2007, and lost his battle at about sometime around noon on Thursday. He was in desperate need of a kidney. They had a fundraiser a couple of weeks ago over the, I think it was when we were down in Kansas City for that race weekend. But yeah, sad story there. Josh, hard fought. They didn't think he was going to make it much past birth, but he made it for 10 years, almost 11 years. So
yep. Bad deal, though.
Yeah, tough stuff there. So that don't have very good words to say about cancer. You never really can. But hey, October and November are Cancer Awareness Months. Do yourself a favor and get yourself checked out. Do those health screenings and tests so that way you can avoid any kind of drunk. I know you've got another buddy that you lost because of cancer.
Well, I haven't lost him yet, but everybody that knows me know that I've been friends with Russ John for a long time, and you racers, he's worked on, I don't know, countless numbers of cars with you guys. It's Mark Day's stepdad. Y'all know him. He helped out Nick Starr and his brother, and I mean, he's helped out anybody that asks for help. You know, very intelligent guy, always scaling cars for people and everything else. He's been diagnosed with what sounds like some terminal cancer, so there is a GoFundMe page set up to help him with some final arrangements. So if you get over on Facebook, take a look for that and see if you can help out.
Let's enter into our little sanctuary, our hiding space from the realities of the world, and let's talk about what happened at Martinsville Speedway. There's no such thing as a sanctuary when you're talking about Martinsville, is there?
And there wasn't anything hiding about it either, except the 2 responses from Clint Bowyer before his penalty and Dale Earnhardt.
Yep.
NASCAR needs to take notice. We need more of this.
Yeah. Listen, this was great. This is the kind of conversation we've been needing to have all year long. We've had great racing, but unfortunately there's been too many failed tech inspection issues, and we didn't have any of that this week. We had the classic debate that has been happening since, I don't know, about the 40s or 50s when they started racing them. Any short track. I mean, you race these short tracks. The greatest thing about short tracks and road courses is that you have slowed down corners and an opportunity to dump a guy. Whether you do it on purpose or you don't do it on purpose, it happens, and it's a part of the racing world. And this has been the greatest conversation all year about the racing we've had. But even though the racing has been great all year, now we get to focus on track stuff and not post-race or pre-race or pre-qualifying. Let's talk about that race. I thought it was a fantastic race because we didn't see a lot of guys sneaking out and getting big leads. Now, that's tough to do at Martinsville because about the time you get to lap, 10, 15, 12 after the green flag drops for the race or the restart, you're into lap traffic, and you can't keep building that lead like you can at a 1.5 mile or a 2.5 mile track. But I thought that second place was able to keep the leader within range, and then once that lap traffic started to become a factor, you really started to see a big battle for the lead.
Well, and you had several cars that were set up just a little bit different. Brad Keselowski had a great long-run car. Chase Elliott's car wasn't too bad long run. Then you had some of the guys with the short run cars, and that's where you saw the leads changing. The one thing I found really interesting about the race, after all the complaining and all the huge advantage Martin Truex was going to have by getting to pick his pit stall from the Kansas qualifying, I didn't see a whole lot of advantage in it.
I didn't either. And, to be honest with you, after everyone said, well, that was a big advantage for Martin Truex Jr., I didn't think it was an advantage. Advantage is like if they were to say it after qualifying happened. But everybody knew going into Kansas, at least everybody in the cockpit, in the driver's seat knew, and everybody, all the teams knew that Kansas's qualifying also got them first their pit stall selection for Martinsville. Everybody knew the playing field going into it, and everybody talked about it before that, saying qualifying at Kansas is really important because it sets up the pit selection at Martinsville, which could be critical. And I think it might have helped. It helped him as much as a number one pit stall will help, which isn't an advantage, but I don't think it was a big advantage, and I don't think it was any more of an advantage than if he'd have gotten the pole at Martinsville or whoever would have gotten the pole. I completely disagree with the people that said that because it was a Kansas qualifying that set up the pit selection at Martinsville, it was an advantage for Martin Truex Jr. Completely disagree with that because everybody knew the playing field going into Kansas qualifying.
Well, I don't know what pit stall Kyle Busch had, but he was the one that got all the advantage on pit road.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting 2 and 3 and 4 spots every pit stop. He'd go back on the track and give them back up, but he was getting them on pit road, and he was the only one.
Fantastic racing all day long. Rough day for Kyle Larson, and this would have spelled a very, very bad day for him had he ended up qualifying for this round, which we know he was eliminated at Kansas, but he'd be in a very tough situation going into the next two races because he finished tail end Charlie for the major content. I shouldn't say tail end Charlie, 37th, and garners himself 1 point. Playoff contenders that had a bad day. I'm going to say he had a bad finish because he had a really good day going. Chase Elliott ended up finishing 27th. He is the worst of the playoff finishers. Got himself 21 points. Next was Jimmy Johnson in 12th. Ended up getting 33 points on the day. And then most of your playoff contenders filled in the top 8, which was Brian Blaney at 8th, Denny Hamlin at 7th. Kevin Harvick at 5th, Brad Keselowski at 4th, Martin Truex Jr. at 2nd, and then Kyle Busch ends up getting the race win, and he ends up being the largest points getter on the day at 58 points. We got about, we'll take maybe 3 or 4 minutes into this turn and kind of talk about that situation between Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott. If you don't mind, I'd like to go first because I think it's going to be simple and concise. I've got absolutely no problem with it. It's Martinsville, short track racing, it's playoffs. Everybody's fighting tooth and nail for it, and it's a golden ticket to the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory, also known as Homestead Miami Speedway. I've got no problem with what Denny Hamlin did.
I've got no problem with what he did. I do have a problem with how he did it. To take the guy's back tires off the ground 150 or 200 feet before the corner is wrong. That is really wrong. That's why he wrecked him. He could have waited to get to the turn and bumped him out of the way, just as Kyle Busch did to Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
But he wrecked him, and that was bad.
And it's been happening since the days, like we kind of talked about at the beginning of the turn. This is nothing new. It happens at the short tracks every Friday night. You could see it coming when it's a close battle, and you know that the guy's just waiting until turn 4. You don't do it in turn 2 because then he has an opportunity to recover along the backstretch and get you back in turn 3 and 4. You wait till turn 3 to do it and execute the great bump and run. And there is a definite difference between bump and run and wrecking them.
And
you
dump
talked
and
about
run,
it, right?
And
maybe I think there might be a little bit of fault to Chase Elliott to not being able to handle that car going into the corner, and because he could have worked it up the track and saved it, much like Denny Hamlin did when Kyle Busch did it to him.
Well, but again, the difference is if your back tires aren't on the ground when it happens, you're not going to save it, and that was the difference between the two instances.
Just out of curiosity, and this has nothing to do with anything other than a question popped into my head. My consumer vehicle, like the front brakes do like 70% of the braking. Do Cup cars do the similar? Do the majority of the braking happen at the front?
No, the Cup cars actually have an adjuster in it, and I think your consumer, that's probably about right, 65-70% on your consumer vehicle. But race car brake, it's going to depend on the driver and how he wants the car set up. But they've actually got an adjustable knob. Your late models have them.
And you could set it up to where the left brakes harder than the right, because then that will ease you down into the corner.
Well, usually it's just a front and rear distribution. Okay. It's not a left or right. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cars will literally just shut off the right front brake and let that roll around and let the left pull it into the turn. That's kind of a standard setup. Or you actually put a valve in to the right front brake that limits it way down to where it's basically not doing anything.
Okay.
But it's front to rear.
Yeah, the only reason why I kind of wonder that is if Chase wasn't braking as hard. I don't know. Just whatever. The thousands of scenarios that could have happened. There's only two guys that really know what happened in those cars. And
well, no, there's only one guy, and he lied about it.
Denny has come out several times this week and said, I didn't mean to wreck him. To be honest with you, the point is moot. It all happened.
Yep.
And, going into Texas today, going into Phoenix next weekend, and then Homestead, I don't see many scenarios where Chase Elliott is going to retaliate. If Chase Elliott is eliminated in this round and they move on to Homestead, I definitely don't think he's going to retaliate at Homestead, because we hear every year about how non-playoff drivers are not to interfere with the four drivers that are involved in the playoff championship battle. So I think for that reason, if Denny Hamlin is in it and Chase Elliott isn't, and Chase is in any way involved in an accident with Denny Hamlin, Chase will get a big fine from NASCAR.
Well, and you'll also see a suspension to start next year.
Probably,
just like, they suspended Matt Kenseth the last three races when he wasn't in the chase, and Joey Logano was running at Martinsville 2 years ago.
Yep.
Now, when you
that, by the way, folks, that is a rule in the rule book. It's not just an unspoken thing that's kind of pushed upon.
It's not a gentleman's rule. It's in writing.
After that Matt Kenseth situation, it got put in writing.
Yeah. And you go back to the Logano deal, and as Logano's crew chief has said, I can't remember his name right now.
Todd Gordon.
There we go. He said, I blew the call. I couldn't see where the tire rub was. I was hoping it was in the tread and we could get the last 7 laps and salvage a top 10 finish. Well, so when he spun and brought out the yellow, they cost Brad Keselowski the automatic pass and winning that race, because he had 1 3/4 second lead or something like that. Yeah, it was plenty.
Yeah. And I was listening to the conversation all week long about that whole Logano and Keselowski situation. I think that proves that there are no team orders at Penske, that there are no orders to pull over and let him win and do this, because if there was, Todd Gordon in the back of his mind would have heard tire rub, you pit. The captains told us we're to help out each other any way we can. I think there's no team orders at Penske, and I think this is the evidence that we finally have to say there's definitely no team orders. They're sharing information back and forth, and there's working well with each other. But when it comes down to a win, and that 22 was going, they need good finishes.
And they had a good car.
Yeah.
They had a good car, and Kyle Busch drove through him. That's all there was with there. I was surprised just the way Logano is, and that he just didn't go ahead and stuff Kyle Busch right back in the wall and be done with it.
Well, maybe he didn't because of all the stuff that happened between him and Kenseth, a couple of years before. We all learn from our past lessons, and I think a lot of drivers learned from that Matt Kenseth Joey Logano situation.
Neither Logano or Chase Elliott are going to forget what happened at this race.
And by the way, if you wonder who is going to be the NASCAR Golden Boy starting in 2018, the fan reaction at Martinsville and the online fan reaction after that shows you that Chase Elliott will be the 2018 most popular driver.
Probably the most popular driver. He's going to take over the Earnhardt throne in the 9 car.
Absolutely. And it's good to see, because he's such a good driver, and he's got that same mentality as Dale Earnhardt, where he's a calm, cool, collect guy, where a lot of guys would not have had that calm of a post-race interview after that whole situation. But he's just a chill guy, and I think fans eat that up. They love it.
When he said my mama told me if I couldn't say something nice, not to say anything, I about fell out of my chair.
We talked about Kyle Busch gets the win and punches his ticket. He is the only guy that is secure going into Homestead Miami Speedway on November 19th, and no surprise.
Martin Truex going to a 1.5-mile track. Martin Truex is in too.
You never know. I mean, like I'm saying, realistically, we know Martin Truex Jr. is the other guy that's in. He's got such a big lead over the rest of the field as far as those playoff points is concerned. And I will point out, going into Homestead, those playoff points are wiped away. They're all going to be even, Steven. Every one of those 4 drivers that is in there is all going to be at the same amount of points. There are no bonus playoff points. There are no stage points. It's all the same amount of points.
Out of those 4 drivers that start the race at Homestead, the first guy to the checkers, whether he's the winner or 10th place, the first one of those 4 to the checkers is your champion.
Homestead is the only race that stage points do not get collected. There are stages at Homestead, but they do not award 10, 8, 9,876 stage points for that race because NASCAR wants it as simple as possible. Whoever finishes the best of the 4 drivers wins the championship. It's really plain and simple. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back at turn number 2. We're going to cover some NASCAR news and notes. Turn number 3, Zach Ralston of said Zach Ralston Racing, who is a ARCA Series driver, hailing right here from the home state of Iowa, will join us in turn number 3 to talk about his career and his goals for the future. Then in turn number 4, we will preview today's race at Texas, and we'll talk more about the Homestead Miami Speedway Party. Are your feet still hurting from getting all those autographs down in Kansas City?
They've been a little tender. I mean, it was a lot of hiking, and like I said, I was able to get some that are tough to get. With the Danica Patrick,
I
got
surprised.
Martin Truex, and I got Kevin Harvick. I mean, I got some good ones.
It might have bought you another year on the front stretch. We'll see in May.
I'd be happy if it buys me another pair of tennis shoes.
We'll be back here on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
This week's young gun on the front stretch is 27-year-old Corey Stapleton, who found his love for dirt racing as he watched his dad, Mike Stapleton, win races all over the Midwest. Corey started his career racing ATVs, and after a few years, he switched to figure 8 racing. After he won the 2014 front-wheel drive track championship at Carroll County Fairgrounds, he decided to switch to circle track racing and bought a sport compact. Corey won the track championship at Shelby County Speedway last year and finished runner-up the last 2 years at Crawford County Speedway in his sport compact. This season, he moved into the stock car class where he competed weekly at Crawford County Speedway. Corey plans on racing his stock car for the next few years with the goal of making sure he can beat his dad and Mike Nichols. Make sure to keep your eye out next season for the number 8 Barron's Trucking, Derek Ghost Trucking, Nemitz Trucking stock car at a track near you. This week's Young Gun has been presented by Craig Kelly of Insera, Kelly & Sewell Personal Injury Attorneys.
For almost 70 years, Insera, Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 2. And this is where we're going to cover our butts along the back stretch. We don't want anybody moving to the inside, getting into us, anything like that. We're coming out clean out of turn number 2. Let's see.
How do you do that?
I know. Coming out clean, that's never been a good one for me.
Must be coming out slow.
Stewart Haas Racing has announced they have scheduled a press conference for November 8th to announce the new driver for the number 10. I think everybody is predicting that Eric Almirola will be that driver.
Except me.
Mostly because, I know. If only I had a helicopter sound. Who do you think it's going to be?
Carl Edwards.
Yep, he's coming into the Smithfield.
He likes bacon.
Yeah, he does, apparently. Who doesn't, though? I mean, that's one sponsorship I will cry if it ever leaves NASCAR, because that Sunday morning at Kansas Speedway when those Smithfield boys were firing up their brake, I can't even speak. It was so good.
I mean, my cholesterol level went up just walking by it.
As many of you know, Danica Patrick was announced after. So the Smithfield announced that they were going to be moving to Stewart Haas Racing. Later that same day, Danica Patrick said, I am not returning to Stewart Haas Racing. I will not be the driver of the number 10 and whatever sponsor it entails. Because at that point, we didn't know if there was going to be a number 10. We'd been hearing for a long time that Stewart Haas Racing was going to drop to 3 cars. And I know Tony Stewart, when they went to 4 cars, wasn't happy because he felt like a 2 or 3 car operation was the best form, but they picked up Danica Patrick and they picked up Kurt Busch after already having Tony and Kevin Harvick under their stable. So they're at 4 cars. But then they picked up the Smithfield sponsorship, so now they've got money to fund a 4th operation, so they might as well run one. And kind of sounds like this is going to be a Eric Almirola ride for a while. And I'm hearing rumors that Danica Patrick is going to be moving to Roush Fenway Racing to race a third car, which is not. I don't think they've raced the third car for since last year when Biffle finished his.
Right.
Since Biffle didn't renew his contract, but
yeah, the Smithfield deal is really odd because they supposedly separated with Petty because Petty announced that Bubba Wallace was going to drive for them, and then Eric was going to be out. And, of course, then they made the announcement we're going to be over at Stuart Haas. And now this week, again, they've made the announcement that we've kissed and made up with Richard Petty. Mm-hmm. It was all a big misunderstanding, so you're still going to see Smithfield on the 43 cars.
And this is a classic example of things I've had to do in my life as a salesman. When I miss out on a contract, I really have to bite my lip and not say what I want to, because I can ruin any future opportunities. And I think that Richard Petty is really lucky that when he came out and basically called out Smithfield and said, we had a gentleman's agreement where I come from, yada, yada, yada. Well, to my recollection, Smithfield never said we aren't going with Richard Petty Motorsports. They simply just signed a deal with Stuart Haas Racing to go over there. Richard Petty and RPM assumed that meant, well, they're not coming over here, and now we're pissed off, and their anger got the better of them. But luckily, they were able to all sit down and calm things down and have a nice conversation. And Smithfield is going to be expanding their presence in the Cup Series garage.
They didn't completely burn the bridge, is what it amounts to,
or they didn't burn the bacon.
They probably. Yeah, they
probably
smoked. They probably
I want to
smoked the bacon.
apologize. That was terrible. I have a no pun rule on this show, and I violated it. So I really apologize to any fans that are now throwing up in their Cheerios.
But it's a good deal. They're staying in the sport, and it sounds like with more of a commitment. Actually, I just read an article today where. Was it Crete High School here in Nebraska that they donated $50,000 to on a program that Crete's got going on? I thought that was pretty cool, that they're stretching out and, helping. I mean, because they're not a Nebraska company by any means. So, but I think that's really cool, and I'll continue to eat their bacon.
Oh, yeah, do us all a favor. I go after that Smithfield stuff all the time. Quite frankly, I think most bacon tastes the same, but if Smithfield's going to spend millions of dollars in my favorite sport, I'm going to spend $5.99, $7.99 on a pack of bacon. You better dang well believe it. All right, hey, good news for our buddy David Starr. He's going to be pulling double duty this weekend at Texas.
Yes, he is, and good news for one of his sponsors. I mean, if anybody has ever had Whataburger, whether, it's been, I've eaten it in Texas. I used to go all the time. I got a lot of family down there. But they've opened a Whataburger evidently right there at the interchange of I-35 West and Highway 114, which is where the racetrack's at. So they've got a Whataburger right across the street. And David's, I think it's tomorrow. He's going to be over there signing some autographs for a couple hours.
Well, I mean, this will air on Sunday, so it'll be that'll have happened on Friday. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Friday was going to be signing autographs.
The car that he's been posting pictures on, that's an old Xfinity Series car, right? Because that front end looks like a current ARCA Series car.
Oh, yeah. He said it's a show car.
Okay.
So,
okay.
It's more than likely something else that they've run and maybe ran it at an ARCA race somewhere that, we don't know about. But they've got a deal worked out for the Cup race with more freight lines, and we met their representative down at Kansas. He was in the hauler, and they haul glass. Bulk glass, and they're out of I don't remember where in Tennessee, somewhere in Tennessee, and he'd been hooked up with David for several races, so it's kind of neat to see them put this deal together. And trying to remember whose car they're driving.
The 66 of
MBM.
MBM. It's not Mittler Brothers Motorsports.
No.
It's a different operation, but it's an MBM Motorsports.
Yeah. So and David, that's his home track, and I mean, I've been down there at some Cup races 15, 20 years ago where he was out sweeping off pit road and putting up lining rope and was doing ride-alongs for like $100 a pop after the race.
If any of our fans are going down to Texas, we could probably get you on that crew. It's not that we have any kind of extra
Not the Cup crew,
pull.
the Xfinity crew.
Right, the Xfinity crew. But heck, why not? Go down there. That's a heck of an experience, and you don't have to play a 5-week contest to do it. You might want to bring your own gloves, but it's one
the
fun
gloves
experience.
are a little holy. They're kind of worn out. But
coming out of Martinsville, some post-race penalties, and one of them that, oddly enough, this goes back into that category of it seems like just after you and I talk about it, something happens. And you and I were down in Kansas, and we were noticing I was noticing all these different things, and One of them I was noticing was that somebody was putting this big 21-volt battery in a compartment in the passenger side of all the Xfinity Series cars. And he had this big tray of batteries. I mean, it was a massive bank of batteries, and he's loading them all in, and we ended up figuring out that it was probably the pack for the TV camera. And we had that conversation about how even if they don't have the camera in the car, everybody has to have the same amount of weight in that exact same spot because they don't want the guys carrying the TV cameras and the TV equipment to have any kind of a disadvantage, because that's constantly going to be your Kevin Harvick's, your Denny Hamlin's, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s.
Well, the sponsors pay for those cameras. That's one thing that the general public does not know. It's like $5,000 or $6,000. That's why you have the Ford in-car camera, and you have the Jimmy John's in-car camera, whatever it happens to be. Mm-hmm. But they pay for that. So that's why, you might not see what you would consider the average type driver. They do like 9 cameras, but it's just like everything else. It's all about the dollar.
And apparently the 14 team did not have a camera in their car at Martinsville, and so they had to have dummy weight in there, which is the exact same weight in the exact same spots, except it wasn't the exact same weight.
Yeah, well, it's on the right side of the car.
Right.
Which is a disadvantage. So you take weight off over there and move it to the other side. It's going to help your handling. That's just life. You can't change that.
And it's one of those things, I think we could chalk it up to an honest mistake, but unfortunately, it is a performance advantage mistake. And so NASCAR was forced to hit the 14 team with an L1 penalty, which means that Mike Booger Ravitch
got a one-race suspension.
So he's on vacation today at Texas.
They lost some points and lost some money.
10 points, I believe $10,000. I mean, it was a pretty low level 1 penalty as far as level 1 penalties are concerned. So not really that big of a deal. Hey, you remember who used to crew chief for Tony Stewart in his championship run?
Yes, and he is going to be back with William Byron in the 24 next year.
Yep.
Mr. Darian Grubb.
Now, Grubb was named as temporary crew chief for the number 5 of Casey Kane for the remainder of the 2017
Probably
season.
to get him warmed up.
Probably. And now they've announced that Darian Grubb will now be the crew chief for the number 24 of William Byron when William is in his rookie season in the 24 car for 2018.
Definitely qualified for the job.
Let's see if I can find any other news. That former tire changer, Brandon Hopkins, that sued Michael Waltrip Racing for slander.
Several years ago.
Yeah. That's where we ended up figuring out how much these over-the-wall guys are making, about $1.60 a year. Not $1.60, like $160,000 a year.
Well, that's also if they're working in the shop.
Correct. We found out all the different stuff. Now, there was some accusations back and forth. Basically, they did the same thing that Richard Petty Motorsports and Smithfield did. They both released huggy-lovey story statements saying that, okay, yep, we love each other again. We've reached an agreement. Everything's all happy and hunky-dory now with each other.
Yep, and like I said, it is a well-paying job. But again, anymore, a lot of these over-the-wall guys have full-time jobs. They just show up for pit practice once or twice a week and then travel on the weekends. So, but this guy was actually a fabricator, if I remember right, for Michael Waltrip, along with going to the track.
I would love to get a chunk of that. How many thousands of dollars did we get paid when we did it for David Starr? Oh yeah, none. We did it for fun.
My resume looks better.
It does. Couldn't afford a new pair of shoes, but his resume looks great.
No, but it was still fun, and it was
what an experience.
It was a good experience.
That was awesome.
In all honesty, I don't know if I'd do it again. I was literally wore out. Those tires are heavy, and picking them back up over that wall, that was a lot of strain on the back and everything. Like if I was a younger man, it'd been no problem. But
yeah. I am a younger man.
And it was still a problem.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3. Zach Ralston of Zach Ralston Racing, a ARCA Series driver right out of Springville, Iowa, will join us to talk about his career, his plans for the future, and all that fun stuff. Then in turn number 4, we'll preview Texas and so much more. We'll be back here on the Front Stretch.
Have you ever watched NASCAR, dirt track, or IndyCar and thought, I could do that? Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the place to put your money where your mouth is. Races fire off every 10 minutes, so what are you waiting for? Get to Joe's Karting on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, next to the Mid-America Center, and find out how easy it is to drive a race car. Each Joe's Karting car is powered by an eco-friendly Honda engine capable of a 14-second lap. That's if you're as good as you think.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times. Quaker Steak and lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Rolling into turn number 3 on the front stretch, and it's time to talk to a guy that, I got to tell you, I am shocked at the number of Iowa-based drivers that are competing in the upper levels of racing. How many Nebraska-level drivers is there?
Well, the last one.
Okay, thank you. I think last I counted was 5, and one of them is joining us on the phone now, coming to us from Springville, Iowa. He drives the number 10 ARCA Series car, which is done for the year at, I think their series wrapped up at Kansas. But his name is Zach, and he's a part of Zach Ralston Racing. How you doing, bud?
Good. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. A big fan of yours turned me on to you on Facebook, said you got to check out this Zach Ralston Racing guy. He's doing some pretty amazing stuff, and he's racing in the ARCA Series. And I said, no kidding. We should have ran into him a couple of times at Iowa and Kansas, but we didn't hear anything about him. So we figured we'd get you on the show and at least talk about your year and your career.
And if he is at those two places again next year with the ARCA Series, we will make sure to butt heads with him.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the plan, guys. Yeah, we're definitely trying to get back to the racetrack. This year we were fortunate enough to team up with Andy Hillenberg and run about 4 races. We didn't get to run the whole races, but we ran about half of them, ran them for points for Andy and stuff like that, made some laps, so that was good. I got started growing up in racing through go-karts here in my home track in Iowa. So raced go-karts and wanted to run a little bit bigger stuff after I won a few national championships in go-kart racing, but my dad would never let me run the dirt tracks. So he wouldn't let me. He said if I wanted to go racing, I needed to go to North Carolina and learn how to become a race car driver before I just go. So
that's interesting.
My dad.
Do you mind me asking what was his reason behind not going to the dirt tracks?
He believed that it was just his vision. He saw a lot of kids that grew up racing that were in front of me, and he watched them go right to the dirt tracks, and that's kind of where they stop or they peak or they spend all their money or they make excuses why they can't go beyond that point too.
That's a really good point.
I'm fortunate enough to have a great father, and he's the one that definitely pushed me and guided me along the right path that told me get my butt to North Carolina if I want to go racing.
Well, and also as the years have gone on, especially if your goal is to eventually get to like the Cup Series and get over on the NASCAR side, which, I mean, you're right next door to the Xfinity Series with the ARCA cars, but NASCAR in the last 12 to 15 years changed their view on dirt track drivers. I mean, you had the Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart and Clint Bowyer and Carl Edwards, and all these guys were dirt track racers and were able to come right in. But now, I don't care if you're the national champion in IMCA modified, you still got to go to North Carolina and run some asphalt late models before they're even going to take a look at you. It's really weird.
Yes, sir. It's actually you have to earn it. I don't have the checkbook. Like we've talked about that before. It takes a lot of money to go racing as well. But besides the commitment and everything, you have to earn it. And you have to gain respect. So by going to North Carolina, I actually signed up for a school down there first and went with some kids who graduated from that school already the past semester to a race, and they were just walking up and down the ARCA Garage asking for jobs. So I just, being from Iowa, Midwesterner, I walked up to the first guy that I thought he had a cool crew and asked him for a job, and he told me, come up to my shop in 2 weeks and I'll hire you, I'll give you a shot. So I dropped out of school within 2 weeks that I signed up for it. And
high school or college?
This is college.
Okay, good. You didn't drop out of high school. That's good. Stay in school, kids.
Yeah. Stay in school.
What age did you go up and talk to him and get that first job?
Yeah.
I had
18?
just turned 21 years old.
Oh.
21?
Yes, sir.
So you took a break between high school and college?
Yes, sir. I did. My cousin played college football for the University of Iowa for a couple of years. His name's Marshall Yonda.
Smart man.
And I was fortunate enough to just stay, pump my brakes. I worked for 2 years straight and then saved my money. Then after watched him play football for a couple of years, he went to the Baltimore Ravens. I went to North Carolina. So
that does kind of see. I want to go back to your point about the dirt tracks. It kind of seems like if you're going to do it, if you're really going to do it, because we know a couple of drivers in our area that have said we'd love to go and race NASCAR, but they're here in this area racing, and it's so hard to get that shot. You got to just move to North Carolina and make it happen.
Right. Yes, sir. Absolutely. My first job was washing the haulers that take the cars to the racetrack. I wasn't even allowed to touch the cars. So, I mean, if that puts some reality into it now, I started from the bottom in racing. I mean, washing the hauler is basically not the bottom because it's a very important job, but it's one of those steps that, my boss literally told me I couldn't touch the car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they tell me a lot about that with the buttons and knobs around here for the radio show.
You're not real familiar with our show, but we actually run contests where we have winners of our contests begin honorary crewmen for a day with some teams. Yeah, they kind of look at your guys and say, well, they can't touch the car. Well,
right.
Okay, but, let them push some tires around or something.
And it's not a bad thing that they can't do that. They know the respect, and they know the guys that have earned that position to work hard on those cars, and they don't want anything to happen.
Oh.
If that makes sense.
So going back to you're washing the trailers and you're not allowed to touch the cars. Did you ever get upgraded to be able to touch the car and move it, or did you get another job and get the upgrade?
So the first day after washing the hauler, they after everybody goes home, the pit crew guys stay. So I was up there for the first week. I had no place to live. So.
Wow.
I was living in my owner's motorhome, staying there before I went and found an apartment. And so I watched the pit crew guys. So the first thing I did was jump right on the pit crew. And I became a tire carrier.
There you go.
So that's how basically that saved me, and that positioned myself to become a mechanic. And then from there, I was taught by a really good mentor, a great crew chief in the ARCA series now. His name's Sam Tram. He taught me basically everything I know on a race car. He had graduated from NASCAR Tech School, which is not, kind of gets frowned upon in racing a little bit, but I mean, this man knew everything about race cars when he came into our shop, so you can't take that away from him.
Oh no!
And you got to have that knowledge in your back pocket, especially as a driver, because it helps you translate what's going on in the car on the track so much better.
Absolutely.
Or you can do a Cole Trickle. Harry, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, and then, unfortunately, we have iRacing and some other simulators. With watching races nowadays, you can pick up so much more than you could back in the day. So even when 10 years ago, you didn't have that kind of information. You had to go out and get it. Or learn it.
We've got one of our we had a local dirt track here that had been open for 50 plus years. It closed in 2000, and the owner's brother is real big in iRacing, but he was racing late models on dirt and stuff, and he said the iRacing now on this dirt stuff is so accurate, it's incredible.
Yes, it's amazing. That's how I practice. So for anyone listening, any young kid, that's how I practice before I go to any track. That's how most of the NASCAR drivers practice before they go to the track.
Huh.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets to go to a professional simulator and sit with his crew chief and car chief and run laps and laps and laps before they go to the track.
It's kind of it's the new wind tunnel, isn't it?
Yes.
Teams used to spend so much time and money on wind tunnels, and now it's shifting to simulators.
Well, between the simulator and the simulators for the driver, and then they've got the shaker rigs for the cars. I mean, there is so much technology on the people have no idea.
And the competition is right there. It's so fierce, the competition, because of all the technology and the money and everything. So when you get up to, that's why guys want to give up at the ARCA level or the trucks level, because it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's commitment. Besides like, we're talking about cars and crew guys, you have to have a commitment from your sponsors, and your companies have to jump on board with you too. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed at the level that you want.
Is that the toughest part? It seems like it's so hard for drivers to be able to have that finesse and conversational ability to be able to get sponsors to give them, frankly, millions of dollars. Just say, hey, give me millions of dollars so I can go out and turn some laps.
Right. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen that easy. You have to take time. You have to build relationships. I've spent hours and days and weeks of my life sleeping in my car just to shake hands with people, just to open doors and build relationships, maybe that they want to jump on board and be a part of my program in the future. No one's going to walk in and hand you anything. It doesn't work that way in life, no matter what. No one, it doesn't matter even if you have hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. You still have to go out there, because I've seen kids with that much money get in race cars. You still have to have commitment, dedication, and drive and talent. So,
does that frustrate you that's one aspect to your racing career that you're not able to have by default, and you're watching these other guys and you're looking at them going, I've got more talent and I could do better things on the racetrack than them, but because they got the money, they get the shot.
You know, you're not a Spencer Gallagher, you know, where dad owns an airline or something like that, you know.
Right. Yes, sir. So 4 years ago, I would have said yes and agreed with you. Like, it does suck that I'm not that guy. But today, I wouldn't be owning a successful small business. I wouldn't have the drive that I have. I wouldn't have the passion. My goal is to run a NASCAR truck race. I just wouldn't have that if it was handed to me.
Well, what are you going to?
I can't say I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't love it. But I am thankful now that I can say that I've earned it at this point and will earn it.
What are you going to do if that NASCAR truck race that opens up for you is at Eldora, since you didn't race the dirt?
It's going to open up for me. I'm going racing. And I tell you what, that is probably my top 5 bucket list.
Really?
Up there. It's to race Eldora. Yes, that and Knoxville Nationals. I want to run Knoxville Nationals.
Now, since your dad kind of shied you away from it, it's nothing bad about not going to the dirt track. I think the point that he made is very valid. Have you had the opportunity to go race dirt?
When I graduated high school, so you guys remember I told you I didn't go to college right away.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my graduation money and I went down to Texas. Took all of it. I went down to Texas to a sprint car driving school called Smiley Sutton's Driving School, and I ran a couple hundred laps in a sprint car, 410 Outlaw sprint car.
There you go.
Practice.
What track were you at when you did that?
We were at a short track in Austin, and I do not remember the name.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you'd have been up at the dirt track at Texas Motor Speedway or something like that.
Oh no, sir. No, it was a smaller sprint car track.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because I've seen the World of Outlaws there before, and that's pretty impressive. Dan and I actually do go over, and just being out of Omaha, we do cover the World of Outlaws at Knoxville, and then we go back a month later and do cover the late model race there. So
great.
That is definitely a track and a facility and a race to have on your bucket list. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's get into more modern stuff. You said you raced a couple of races in 2017 for Andy Hillenberg Racing.
Yes, sir. There's a fortunate opportunity. My dad had helped Andy out a little bit this year, and we jumped on board with our sponsor. I have a sponsor out of Kansas City called O-Ring Sales. They've been with me for about since 2012.
O-Ring Sales?
O-Ring Sales.
Okay.
They're a sales distributor company out of Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay.
Family-owned company, Doug Johnson, great company. My dad actually works for them now. They partner with us when we can run races. When they can, we go racing. They put me in my first race car. They've had my back ever since. They know my story. Great company, and with them, a few other companies that we've partnered with this year, we're going to attack the 2018 series season pretty hard.
And are you going to be with Andy Hillenberg again, or still?
At this point, I'm going to try to run as many races as possible. It doesn't matter to me who it's with, what car it is. Best opportunity with the budget and funding that I can come up with. Our ultimate goal is to run a NASCAR truck race. To be considered to consider myself a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
I've had opportunities to start and park in the series of NASCAR. I just haven't done that.
Right.
Not because I didn't feel like that was my time. I didn't earn that yet. Yeah. So.
Well, and it's not a good rep to get, and it's also kind of a disservice to your sponsor.
Yes, sir.
You know,
sure.
and
that's for the team owners. That's not for the drivers.
Right.
So.
And for our listeners out there, Andy Hillenberg around our area was a sprint car driver in the World of Outlaws from Oklahoma. The Andy Hillenberg that he is talking about, I think, was originally from Indiana.
Yes, sir.
And I think I'm
talking about the Indiana Andy.
Right. And now has he relocated? I know he was in with the group that bought, I think it was Rockingham Speedway, and I thought he relocated to North Carolina. Am I right?
Yes, sir. He has. He doesn't own Rockingham Speedway anymore, but he's a fantastic owner. He owns a beautiful shop right next to the Concord or Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina.
Okay.
So fine facility. They're actually getting ready to go to Talladega test this week.
So the goal is obvious. Your short-term goal, Cup Series, get into a Truck Series ride at least once. But you obviously want to be up there competing in the playoffs for the Monster Energy Cup Series.
Yes. Get back to my goal. My full-time goal. My goal is to become a full-time race car driver. So I was fortunate enough to be on a TV show called the Octane Academy a few years ago, and I got into some coaching with Tanner Faust and Vaughn Gittin Jr. and Brian Deegan. And that opened up to me to some road course racing, to some drifting. I haven't had any. I've pre-ran the Baja 1000, but I haven't got to run the Baja 1000 yet. So we're working on a full total marketing package around me as a driver. That, so when we go into companies that we can maybe offer some assistance, or if NASCAR doesn't necessarily accommodate to their needs, but off-road does, we still have that option.
Awesome. And you said for the 2018 season, you're putting together some stuff to be able to run as many ARCA Series races as you can, right?
Yes, sir. That's the plan right now. If something changes, we might jump up into the truck series if something changes. I know they're going to an Ilmore motor, which is a crate motor for next year.
That's true.
So if they change to that, I know NASCAR has a lot bigger payout purse than ARCA does. So if it makes sense for us to jump up to that series instead of buying brand new cars, because in 2012 I built and owned my own race cars. I didn't build them per se, but I put them together and took them to the track myself and crewed them myself under Zach Ralston Racing. If we do NASCAR, it's tough to do that in NASCAR to start Zach Ralston Racing.
Yeah.
So it would be a lot better deal, and for any younger viewers listening out there, it would be a lot better for us to build a marketing package around me as a driver and then find dedicated teams that have already put in the work and have the trucks, have the crew guys and commitment, and then go racing. We're not trying.
Have you ever met Mike Mittler?
No, sir.
I mean, that is somebody, you're kind of like right up his alley. He's the guy that got Jamie Mack started. He got Carl Edwards started. He's out of the St. Louis area. He owns Mittler Brothers Machines. They build anything and everything to build a race car.
Yeah.
I've used those.
Yeah, he bead rollers and anything, sheet metal, shaker rigs. They build it all, And Mike's a great guy. Like I said, I met him back when I did the Craftsman Truck Series, and we just partnered with him last fall when we did our contest with him and talked to him down at St. Louis, or not St. Louis, in Kansas City. But he's out of the St. Louis area. But that'd be somebody that you need to get down and introduce yourself to.
I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'd be happy to send you his information. I know you and I have been talking on Facebook, so we can send you that so that way you guys can maybe make some connections in the off season. And I know that did he run a second truck for the Eldora dirt race?
He ran a second truck for Eldora, and he actually ran a second truck at several of the races this year. He doesn't run a full-time schedule because, again, they're small and they're out of St. Louis, so a lot of the stuff back and forth, to go, in Martinsville one week, Charlotte the next,
We're going to find a way to get you in that. Don't worry, bud.
Yes, sir. We need a Midwesterner on that checkered flag.
But, he had Bobby Pierce. I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby, but Bobby's a 19-year-old late model driver that is winning everything the last couple of years. He had Bobby in a truck a year ago. He even had Bobby in his truck at Kansas City in 2016. This year, what was the guys' names that they had in the truck?
Oh, I can't remember. It was a set
Mac
of brothers,
something.
wasn't it?
Yeah, there was two brothers that went off and on.
Donahue,
there you go. And
God, I remembered something. Hell doth frozen over.
Ryan Donahue was one of them, and I don't remember what the brothers was, but they ran a real neat truck in Martinsville back in the spring. They had Blue Lives Matter on the truck, and the Donahue boy had, I want to say, a 16th place finish in their equipment or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good finish. Hey, Zach, we got to. We've been talking to you for 22 minutes, and I don't think we've scratched the surface. So we're gonna have to run into you at a track sometime and continue these conversations. But we asked you off the air if you were the god of racing and you could change anything, whether it be physics, be damned, if it was for promoters, for trackside, for sanctioning body, or for drivers. Is there one thing that you would change that you think would improve the state of racing?
One thing I would change is I would give out everybody's information. So everybody would have to post all their information, whether it was how their car was set up at the track, how they found the sponsor. I believe everybody should give out every single thing, kind of like how I told you guys my story a little bit, how I got there.
Yeah.
I've never really held back or steered anybody wrong in racing, I like to say anyway. So I believe I think confidence and showing everything that you have on the table would help out racing more than anybody would ever imagine.
That's a new one.
Yep.
And I find that's interesting. All the setup stuff, all the changes, any of that kind of stuff, it all goes out there into public knowledge.
Yes. And it might have to do with, it might save a lot of these guys from wasting some time in some smaller dirt scale, or not even dirt, smaller asphalt scale.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of wasting time and energy and money in there, they could be moving up and taking that chance and getting their shot.
Yeah. Zach Ralston Racing, find him and follow him on Facebook. Man, we've had a great time talking to you, and what a story. I mean, that's amazing. That's just right out of just decided, hey, I'm moving to North Carolina, and I'm going to make this happen.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys calling me, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future, and we'll go make something work for Eldora.
Amen. We'll do it, buddy. Good luck. See you in the have a good off
guys.
season, and we'll see you at the racetrack sometime soon.
All right, call me anytime.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Zach.
Bye.
Thank you.
Again, find him at Zach Ralston Racing on Facebook, spelled just like the city that's over here on the south side of Omaha. Ralston.
Sounds like he knows where he's been and where he's going.
I tell you, when you talk about that, so many of these fans hate the fact that these drivers have bought and paid for rides and, quote unquote, silver spoons in their mouth. That's not Zach. I was I'm pretty impressed that he said, you know what, I'd like to go dirt track racing, but my dad's right. I got to go asphalt. I got to go to North Carolina and make it happen. And he started by cleaning haulers, washing haulers, and living in his owner's RV.
Well, and like when he picked up the phone when we called, he goes, good, I just got back from laying tile.
Right.
He owns his own successful business, laying tile, so he's working a job and working race cars and everything else. I'm
Awesome.
all putting it together.
Zach Ralston Racing. Find him on Facebook and follow him today. Maybe you can see him competing in the Monster Energy Cup Series some weekend. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4. We'll wrap this baby up by previewing Texas and talking about the Homestead Miami Speedway. The Homestead Viewing Party that's coming up here on the front stretch.
For almost 70 years, and Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Fall has arrived, and so have the cold temperatures, but that doesn't mean you have to stay home. Get into Joe's Karting today and enjoy the Metro's largest fully heated indoor karting track. Get your friends together for a white-knuckle experience you can only find at Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Hours of operation, discounts, and lap times can be found online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. Get to Joe's Karting today and discover Council Bluffs' best-kept secret, 23rd Avenue next to Mid-America Center.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to it. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Coming to the checkered flag for today's front stretch. If you missed any part of today's show, you can head over to our YouTube page about 10 a.m. and we will post all of today's show. And make sure to head down to Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch for today's race, the AAA Texas 500 at Texas Motor Speedway. Coverage is on NBC and PRN at noon with green flag waving at about 1 o'clock. And that also happens to be the time you need to make sure all of your picks are in for the Fantasy League. Talk about Texas, big, fast, wide track. Actually, not necessarily a wide track, but big and fast.
Very, very, very fast. Home of the worst accident I'd ever seen when Michael McDowell crashed the Aaron's Dream Machine several years ago and rolled down the bank and caught fire and everything. And then his big 6'3" frame stepped out of this, what looked like a compact piece of aluminum. But yeah, it's a very fast track. There'll be a lot of racing. Everybody will be chasing Mr. Truex again. It's a 1.5 mile track. He's got 6 wins on him this year. This is just right up his alley. So you'll have Truex, you'll have Harvick, you'll have Chase Elliott. Will kind of be the 3 guys that are up there running around, and Kyle Busch has got his act together now, so he's going to be up there too.
A lot of your contenders are going to be up there.
Brad Keselowski's had some good runs here. Jimmy Johnson has won races here. I think Jimmy won there from the back in the spring, if I'm not mistaken.
Started 24th, finished first.
Well, I think he actually had to go to the back. I think he qualified 24th and had to go to the back.
Yeah, that's something that irritates me about NASCAR is that if he gets sent to the back for rear modification, he still gets credited with whatever he qualified at. And then, so, yeah, I think they're changing that in the next year or two.
because that race and the Delaware race were fairly close, and he did the same thing at the Delaware race, started at the back and won that one too. But
speaking of that race earlier this year, Denny Hamlin was the worst of the playoff contenders, finished 25th. Kyle Busch locked into Homestead, so he doesn't have to worry. He finished 15th. Ryan Blaney finished 12th. Chase Elliott finished 9th, Martin Truex Jr. 8th, Brad Keselowski 6th, Kevin Harvick 4th, and then Jimmy Johnson got the win. Your biggest points getter of the day was Jimmy Johnson, who didn't finish in the top 10 in Stage 1, finished 2nd in Stage 2, and won the race, picking up 49 points on the day.
Like I said, just jump on the Truex wagon if you can and ride that horse, because he has just been so dominant on mile and a halves, and he's out there to win every lap. He'll win the stages. He'll win the race. He wants to do everything. I know Brad was very concerned where he was going to end up. So you're going to get the best effort he's got, even though he had a good finish at Martinsville and is not anywhere close to being bumped out. But he knows he's not a real threat at Phoenix. So he knows if he's going to move on, he's got to have a good race here.
This race last year, Carl Edwards picked up the win in that 19 machine. Joey Logano finished 2nd, Martin Truex Jr. 3rd. Chase Elliott, in a rookie effort, finished in 4th. Kyle Busch finished 5th. Harvick, Kenseth, Kane, Hamlin, and Newman rounded out your top 10. Jimmy Johnson finished 11th. Boy, Brad Keselowski finished 14th. He was the worst of this year's playoff contenders at this race last year, which raced November 6th. Make sure you mark your calendars. November 19th, it's the Homestead Viewing Party. We're going to be handing out the top 16 prizes for the season-long Pick'ems contest. Somebody will be hopefully buying, probably not though, because if I won a $100 gift card to Quaker Steak and Lube for the 5-week contest, I think I would be selfish and order myself all the wings and adult beverages I could consume for $100, which then I would need to find an Uber to get me home. But we'll
need to find an ambulance to get you home.
We're going to be sending the 2017 NASCAR Cup Series season off in style, as we do every year with the Homestead Viewing Party at Quaker Steak and Lube. Great wing specials. They always throw in a beer special to go along with it. And we're going to be giving out some autographed items. We have so many autographed items. Dirk, I think we're up to 238 autographed items in our prize
Well,
bowl.
like we talked earlier, we got some good ones from Kansas Speedway. Chris will more than likely get a couple pools started, so those that like to have a horse in the race, so to speak. We got some $5 pools that go off and pay $50 to the winner. He's already got that $100 gift card that'll already have been won, and hopefully somebody will be there spending it and enjoying it with us. Dan has been practicing his math so we can get some good trivia questions, and we even changed up the trivia a little bit to trick some people.
Which I still need to come up and do a big list of those things, but I got a couple of weeks to do it. November 19th at Quaker Steak and Lube. The party kicks off at 1. Green flag waves at 1:30 for the Homestead Miami Speedway Championship crowning race. We hope to see you there at Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Don't forget, all picks for today's AAA Texas 500 at Texas Motor Speedway are due by 1 p.m.
Truex.
on NASCARPoolsOnline.com. We'll do it all again next weekend as we are going to recap Martinsville, talk about Phoenix, all the great stuff coming up for the next couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The official watering hole of the front stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Any driver will tell you that the key to winning a race is preventive maintenance. Pat at Eccles Heating and Air can make sure your wallet is on the winning side with a preventive care package. Pat will look over your existing unit and make recommendations to make sure you're toasty warm this winter. Drivers trust Pat at the racetrack with their safety, so you know you can trust him with your home heating. Call Pat today at 402-331-1755 and schedule your heater checkup. Eccles Heating and Air.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.